and we're going to be talking about content and using Bible principles to help us with building content and making it simpler for us. I love content. I believe content is something that is not going to ever go away because it was always in the beginning, similar to the Word of God. And I also believe making it simple for people should be something that's repeated. I believe strongly that we get overwhelmed really, really easily when it comes to this subject because we can compare ourselves to so many people. We could be hindered by not being authentically ourselves and more. So we're going to read a scripture and then we're going to explain how this can work for you if you are a business owner, if you are building a brand, and definitely for my crowd who is 40 and over. This is the crowd that I love because you guys have a lot of wisdom, stories, experiences, and sometimes you think that you shouldn't share those things that you should. So I'm going to read Matthew 11 and 28. I'm going to read from the Amplified version. And it says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavily burdened by religious rituals that provide no peace, and I will give you rest, refreshing your souls with salvation. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, following me as my disciple. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest, renewal, blessed quiet for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear and my burden is light." Now, if I read it from a different version, a New American Standard version, it's a little shorter. It may help you and help us when we just get into discussing it today. It says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is comfortable and my burden is light." Now, I'm going to start off with saying I believe Jesus was one of the greatest marketers in the world. And the reason why I say that is because he wasn't selling anything that people didn't need. Number two, he was authentically himself while he did everything. So he didn't need to try to become something. He was just who he was. And he was sharing that. And people gravitated towards those things. I believe strongly sometimes we don't understand as people that we're really complicated, and that could be taken in a bad light, and it's not. Being complicated or being a person with many compartments just means you're a human being, right? To some people, to my daughters, I'm a father. To my wife, I'm a husband. To my students, I'm a coach. To my friends, I'm a friend. I'm still the same person. It's just more so depending on who you're asking at that time, who I am to them. It wouldn't be wise for me not to want to share those things at times with my audience or with people. I believe strongly that people, we've heard this before, people buy from people who they like, love, and trust. I also believe people buy from people who they can relate to, and they feel there's some connection between me and this person who I'm buying from. Anybody who I've bought from that really cost some real money were people who I felt I could relate to. It felt like as if I had a conversation with them in person, that I could relate to them. Now, Jesus starts off this. He's talking to the people, and he says, "Come to me, all you that are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So his target audience is people who are weary and burdened, and his solution is, "I will give you rest." To be able to target or to be able to understand that his target audience was people who are weary and burdened, you have to understand why he came to the earth. He came to the earth to seek and save the lost. He came to the earth to bring salvation to everyone so that everyone could have access to God. At this time, what we do see is he's not targeting the perfect people. And that time, in that day, they were called the Pharisees. He's not targeting them at this specific moment. In this specific passage, he's saying, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Weary and burdened. These are the symptoms that the people are feeling. Good way when you do any type of content, if you're doing it for business or building a brand, is Think about the symptoms that people have. Talk about the symptoms because they know that and they can identify with the actual symptoms. Yes, the end goal was for them to actually be saved, and he says it here at the ending part of verse 29. For I'm gentle and humble, you'll find rest for your souls. Your soul doesn't have rest. That's why you're weary and burdened. But he doesn't start off that way. He starts off by talking about the symptoms that they know they have. That's the first tip. You have to think about your target audience and the symptoms that you know they have. So one is, does the target audience know that they have this problem? And if they do, what are they actually experiencing? Now, my crowd is people who are 40 plus, who have an unfair advantage, which is telling their story. Their story is authentic, it's original, it encompasses trials, errors, failures, losses, wins, successes. It encompasses all of that. And that's their unfair advantage because no one can copy your exact story. With that, I understand that might be the problem, but I understand also their symptom is they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, and they feel really, really defeated because they're not tech savvy. So I talk about those type of things because they can quickly identify that. The end goal is literally just having a content system or a content plan that helps you just execute without massive frustration or being anxious. And that comes with making it simple for them. But if I just said that, they wouldn't identify with that. And Jesus tells us here, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Now, in the Amplified version, he says, come to me, all who are weary and heavily burdened by religious rituals that provide no peace. Goes a little step further where he not only tells them the symptom, he tells them what you are probably heavily burdened by and weary by, which is religious rituals that provide no peace. So this is what I call irritating the symptom or irritating the problem. I could just say, yeah, you're overwhelmed with not knowing how to create content. That is true, but I can go a little step further and go to overwhelmed with not knowing how to create content, and this is frustrating you because you really want to get out there and show people your solutions, really want to gravitate the right crowd so that you can serve and use your gifts in the world, but you're having trouble doing that because you're overwhelmed and you're stuck. I'm just irritating the problem. Now, here is a spin that I wrote down that Jesus did, which usually isn't talked about or done, especially with content. So he goes, take my yoke in verse 29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, following me as my disciple. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest, renewal, blessed quiet for your soul. So usually we say, talk about the problem. Don't sell the how. He goes in verse 29, after he's irritated to the point, he talks about, come to me, all you are weary and heavy burden, I'll give you rest. He tells them the transformation, and then he goes and he tells them what will happen. Verse 29, let's read that again. Let's read it in the New American Standard Version. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle, humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. So he says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. This is what you're going to do in exchange for what you're doing. So a common way you can think about that as a business owner, as building a brand is, I'm going to give you a simpler solution than what you're doing. I'm going to give you a solution that actually works. So there has to be some exchange. Your idea is not necessarily bad. It's just probably not working. So you need to adopt the idea that I want to give you to work for you. But he says why that happens. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And the reason for that is, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And then now this is what's going to happen if you make that exchange. And you will find rest for your souls. That's amazing marketing. He tells them, look, take my yoke and learn from me. I want you to consider taking my idea. Right? Do you believe this can help you? And if you believe this can help you and you take this idea, you take this exchange, he says before that, I am gentle and humble in heart. I'm not going to give you that actually works for you. And because you will do that, you will find rest for your souls. You have the solution. The solution was rest for your souls. How he got them was he targeted a certain audience. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. If you weren't weary and burdened at that moment, he wasn't talking to you at that moment. He wasn't saying, come to me, all who have it together, who are perfect, who are strong, weary, and burdened. A is we want to think about the symptoms of the people who we want to reach and talk in that way. But B is do it in a way where you're not forcing anyone. You want to do it in a way where you're not forcing people to buy, to do business with you. Anytime you have to force someone to make a decision, they're making the decision against their own will. And usually when they make decisions against their own will, they usually don't stick around for long. Make it so that you're not forcing them. A, symptoms. B, don't force them. Invite them. He invites them. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burden, and I will give you rest. And then C, make it so simple that a fifth grader can understand. If you have to break it down so much, like using big words and jargons, people are going to get lost and they're going to walk away. I believe one of the main reasons why people always followed Jesus when he taught, because he taught in storytelling, and he also taught in a way where people wanted to keep listening because of how he was giving the information. Yes, he could have made it more complicated. Yes, he could have made it deep. He could have did these things, but his goal was to get the solutions to his